Welcome back. This is part 2 of 3 that we're working on in this little updo series. So we did the bottom last week. Now this week we're working on the top. So I really, in the beginning of doing updos, I really like to leave out this top section for the last, so you can have a lot of control over what you're doing. You can make sure your client's really happy with the front, and you can make sure this top is really beautiful and smooth, because nothing is worse than creating a gorgeous updo in the back and having your bride not like it because she doesn't like how it looks from the front, or you have to keep going in and tweaking it because the top is not getting enough volume, or it's not as smooth, or a whole number of different things it can be. So if you section this out last and kind of give it a lot of attention, that will help you be really successful. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I take down this section and I'm gonna make sure it's combed in the direction I want it to be. So I want this all to go straight back, and I'm gonna be pinning this into kind of a half updo here. And I want to make sure this top has a little bit of texture to it. But before I do any curling, I'm going to just comb it in the direction that I want it to go. So if the part isn't quite right, this is where you adjust that. If the volume isn't right, this is where you adjust that. If this is not as smooth on the top as it could be, if you need to go into the roots and use a flat iron to kind of get some kinks out, this is where you do that part. I'm not going to create any additional volume. I'm going to use my curling iron to create the volume and the texture that I'm looking for on the top. So I'm going to go section by section. So I'm going to start over on this side, and I'm going to take my top section here about 1.5 inches or so. And what you want to make sure you're doing is making sure you are nice and smooth and controlled. So what I mean by that is I'm going to comb this out thoroughly first. And you can already see I'm getting some like wispy frizz here, which I don't love. So we're gonna go through and spray and then comb again. And I'm kind of bringing it up because I wanna have a little bit of natural volume in here. And now I'm gonna curl this away from the face. And I talked about this in the last video, but I'm using a new curling iron for me, and I find it to be a little bit clunky because it's a little bit longer. It's for long hair. It's a little heavier. It's throwing off my balance. So if I don't look like a pro, it's because I'm not a pro with this one yet. This is the Bio-Ionic curling iron, which I'm liking. It's just taking me some getting used to. And so now I'm just gonna let that sit. I'm not gonna do anything with it yet. We're just gonna let the heat just cool down and lock in that curl before I move on to the next one. So I'll come through and do the very same thing I just did by taking my section here and making sure it is nice and clean, brushing through it. If you have any kinks in here before you even start the curling iron process, you're already doomed to not have a nice clean top. So you want to make sure that your prep on the hair is perfecto, so you can make sure you have a really nice clean top with whatever kind of volume, whichever kind of style you want to put in it. So much of updo work is really in the prep and your careful consideration of each of the strands of hair that you're working with, okay? I think that, yeah, you can get creative and there's a lot of different things and new techniques you can use, but the foundational stuff that you need to really know is going to be how to work clean, how to work organized, how to be really smooth, how to use the right products, taking your time. Don't be afraid to ask for extra time in the beginning. When you're first starting out and you're doing updos, if you watch your peers finishing bridesmaids in 30 minutes, and it takes you an hour, ask for an hour. Don't rush your work and feel nervous and anxious just so you can keep up with the person next door. You will get there, and maybe you won't. Maybe you'll always be someone who works slower. That's okay. But you want to make sure you have enough time to do the work. I have found in my years of doing updo work that when I feel rushed, if I feel nervous, if I feel anxious, I can't do my best work, and a bride's not getting the best of me, the bridesmaids aren't getting the best of me, and sometimes that can't be helped, and people run behind, I've waited an hour for a wedding party before, and then, you know, the photographer's coming and all the things, and you have to do your best, and that's part of this job too. But if you can set the expectation of how much time you need as you're creating that timeline for your bride, then you are creating success for yourself. So it's not only going to be success for you, but it's going to be not only going to be success for your bride to have that timeline, but you're creating success for yourself. So you can have a nice, relaxing experience in the morning and you don't feel rushed and anxious. I always add a half an hour buffer time into the timelines as well. And if you feel safer adding an hour in the beginning when you're just starting out, do that, because you want to make sure you have time to make any adjustments, to give people the space to go in the bathroom and look in the mirror, or not necessarily the bathroom, but go into a space where they can look in the mirror and really look at everything and come back and make adjustments. So they're really, really happy. Okay, so you guys, you can see I've got these 4 distinct sections, and you see how they're nice and neat right now. We want to keep it that way as we're pinning. So I like to start in the center and then do the outside pieces after, because I want to have balance, okay? So we're gonna start with the 2 middle pieces. I'm gonna use my spray wax on all these curls just so it has some good workability. And then I'm gonna use this metal comb here, and I'm gonna break through the curls underneath with this. So I've broken through it a little bit, and I'm just gonna break through it up here a little bit too, because I don't want it to be super, super smooth. So I'm combing through and I can kind of feel the hairspray break up. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna twist this, and I'm gonna hold it gently with my finger. And if you want a little volume, you can just lift up gently here. And this works, this lift up works because I've got good product in here. I've prepped her hair. You can see how smooth and careful I'm working. And then I'm gonna put a pin in. That does not work if you have not done the prep. I have watched so many stylists pin and then start pulling, and the hair is frizzing and not moving. And it's because there's not enough prep that has went into this curl. So take the time to prep. So you can see this is pinned in right here. And now this one I'm gonna do right into this side. So take the time to be very careful and work slowly. Breaking this up, and then I'm going to turn it inward, and you can just loosen it slightly and it lifts really nicely. It makes a nice kind of textured look to it. And I'm going to put my pin right here. If you are feeling a little clumsy with your pin still, use a pin curl clip or an alligator clip here first and then do your pin. So after you put your pin in, you can come back through and make sure these are even. Do any extra adjusting you need to, because just with the one pin that you have in, you have room for movement, so you can still kind of go through and detail that how you want. And then you can lock it in with more pins. But just do one pin to start out, and that one pin will hold it in the shape that you want it, and still give it some movability. So these combs are great because it gives you a lot of control to just smooth in the frizz, create any kind of texture that you want, and just help you not get frizzy hair. So I'm just using my fingers to kind of pinch this out a little bit to create a little bit of texture. And then I open this slightly, and I'm pinning on top, and I'll show you right where I pin this. Right here. And so you can go back through, and if you need to create any more texture in here, you can do that with your fingers, or you can move on to the other side. So let me just turn her this way for you. And same thing over here. So breaking it up, and we'll twist it. And then you can just line that right up there. and hold it into place. And then put your one pin in. So I just open it with my other finger and slide this right in. And so what's great about this right now is I have room to come through and use my fingers. So what I will do if I'm using my fingers is I hold on to the pin that I just placed and I just kind of pull out gently and make sure it's laying how I want. And I can do that through all of it. And then once I really like it and I know that it's the right height from the front, so does this have the right look from the front that I'm looking for, then I'll come through and hairspray. So locking it in with a little bit of hairspray. And if you feel like these are slipping or you need a little more support, you can put a couple more bobby pins right here. But this is how I'll detail the top. And then we're gonna look at the hair that we've left out, how to kind of bring that into the bottom and what to do with the front in our next video. So that will be part 3. Finishing this up is going to be part 3. So thank you for joining me for this part. If you have questions, drop it in the comments. Otherwise, you subscribe, you get notifications. Otherwise, just hang out here and I'll be back next week to show you part 3 of this beautiful updo tutorial where we're talking about updo foundations and skills that you can use on all your updos moving forward. I'm Heidi, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week.